The morning sun rose over Horizon's edge like it had for the past 7 years, painting the colony's metal structures in shades of orange and gold. Captain Day-Ho stood at the observation window of the command center, watching the civilians begin their daily routines below. The mining crews gathered near the transport vehicles, engineers checked the solar panels, and children ran toward the education center with their bags bouncing on their backs. Everything was peaceful. Everything was normal. That was exactly what worried him. Day-Ho had served in the Terran Defense Force for 23 years. He knew that peace never lasted forever. Out here on the frontier, thousands of light years from Earth, they were vulnerable. The colony had only 42 soldiers, 8 defensive turrets, and 2 small patrol ships. It was enough to handle pirates or wildlife, but nothing more. "Captain, you're doing it again," said Young Min from the communications station. The young officer smiled as he adjusted his headset. "The worry face. Everything is fine, just like yesterday and the day before that." Day-Ho grunted but said nothing. Young Min was fresh from the academy, full of optimism and confidence. He had never seen real combat. None of them had, except for Day-Ho and maybe 3 others. This colony was supposed to be a quiet assignment, a place to finish out a career or start a new one. Dr. Hana entered the command center carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Day-Ho and took a sip from her own. As the colony's chief medical officer, she had little to do most days except routine checkups and research on the local plant life. She was a kind woman in her 40s, always ready with a smile or a word of encouragement. "Still waiting for the sky to fall?" she asked gently. "Someone has to," Day-Ho replied, taking the coffee gratefully. 6 months since our last supply ship. The next one is not due for another 4 months. We're alone out here." "We've always been alone out here," Hana said. "That's frontier life. Earth is far away, but we're managing fine." Before Day-Ho could respond, the proximity alarm began to beep. All 3 of them turned to the sensor display. Young Min's fingers flew across his console, his smile fading. "Contact," he announced. "Multiple vessels just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Unknown configuration." Day-Ho set down his coffee and moved to the tactical display. 5 ships appeared on the screen, each one larger than their entire colony. The designs were angular and aggressive, covered in what looked like weapon ports. "Try to hail them," Day-Ho ordered, his voice calm despite the sudden tension in the room. "Standard first contact protocols." Young Min nodded and opened all frequencies. "Unknown vessels, this is Horizon's Edge Colony, representing the United Terran Government. Welcome to the Threshold System. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." For several long minutes, there was only silence. The alien ships moved closer, their engines leaving trails of blue light behind them. Then finally, the speakers crackled to life. The voice that came through was harsh and rasping, translated by their computer into flat, emotionless English. "Humans, you occupy Vral territory. This system belongs to the Vral Empire. You are trespassing." Day-Ho felt his stomach tighten. He had heard rumors about the Vral from other colonies, whispers of an aggressive species expanding through this sector. But Threshold 7 had been surveyed and claimed by Earth 30 years ago. There had been no sign of any other civilization. "This is a misunderstanding," Day-Ho said carefully. "We claimed this system decades ago. There was no indication of prior ownership. We're happy to discuss this through proper diplomatic channels." "There is nothing to discuss. You have invaded our space. You will leave." "We have 800 civilians here," Day-Ho replied, "including children. We need time to contact Earth Command and arrange proper evacuation if necessary. Our communications have a 6-month delay." Another pause. Then, "You have 48 hours. If you remain after that, you will be removed by force." The transmission cut off. The 5 Vral ships held their position at the edge of the system, waiting and watching. Hana looked at Deho with concern. "Can we evacuate in 48 hours? No, Deho said flatly. Our transport ships can carry maybe 200 people at a time. We would need at least 5 trips, and each trip to the nearest inhabited system takes 3 days. They know we can't leave in time." Young Min spoke up, his voice uncertain. "Maybe they're bluffing? Trying to scare us?" "Maybe," Deho said, but he did not believe it. He had seen the weapons on those ships. "Send a priority message to Earth Command. Include all sensor data on the Vral ships. Then contact Jiwoo and tell him to prepare the defensive systems." Over the next 2 days, the colony transformed. The cheerful, relaxed atmosphere disappeared, replaced by fear and determination. Engineers like Jiwoo worked around the clock to bring the defensive turrets online and reinforce the colony's shields. Civilians were moved to the underground shelters, carrying whatever supplies they could. Deho barely slept. He coordinated the defenses, tried to boost morale, and sent multiple messages to the Vral ships requesting more time. Each message was ignored. Hana converted the medical center into an emergency triage station. She organized the civilian doctors and nurses preparing for the worst. When Deho visited her on the 2nd day, he found her teaching teenagers how to treat injuries. "If it comes to fighting, we'll need every hand," she explained. Her usual warmth was still there, but hardened by necessity. "It won't come to that," Deho said, though he was not sure who he was trying to convince. "Maybe not," Hana agreed. "But I've learned that hope is good. Preparation is better." As the 48-hour deadline approached, Deho stood in the command center once more. His 42 soldiers were at their stations. The turrets were armed. The shields were at maximum power. Young Min sat at his console, hands shaking slightly as he monitored the Vral ships. With 1 hour remaining, Deho made his decision. He opened a colony-wide channel. "People of Horizon's Edge," he began. "This is Captain Deho. We are facing a threat unlike anything we've encountered before. The Vral Empire demands we abandon our home. But we have nowhere to go. We built this colony with our own hands. We've lived here, worked here, raised the Vral warships moved through space like predators closing in on wounded prey. Aboard the flagship, Warlord Kethrix watched the human colony grow larger on his displays. He felt nothing but contempt for these creatures. They were small, weak, and foolish enough to defy the Vral Empire. "All weapons ready," reported his tactical officer. "The humans have activated some kind of defensive system, but our sensors indicate minimal threat." Kethrix clicked his mandibles in what passed for a Vral laugh. "They think they can fight us. Destroy their orbital platforms first. Make them watch their defenses fall." The first shots lit up the darkness of space. Vral plasma cannons opened fire, and the human defense platforms exploded one by one. Each explosion was brief and bright, like a candle being snuffed out. In less than 5 minutes, Horizon's Edge had no orbital defenses left. On the ground, Deho watched helplessly as his carefully prepared defensive network died. The shields around the colony flickered under the orbital bombardment. Alarms screamed from every console. "Get everyone to the shelters now," he shouted over the chaos. "Young Min, activate Emergency Protocol 7. Young Min's hands flew across his console even as the building shook around them. Protocol 7 was the last resort, a quantum burst transmission that would punch through space faster than normal communications. It would reach Earth in weeks instead of months, but it required an enormous amount of power. They could only send one message. "What should I say?" Young Min asked, his young face pale with fear. "The truth," Deho replied. "Tell them we were attacked without cause. Tell them to remember us." The building shook again. Through the windows, Deho saw the mining facilities explode under direct hits. Fires spread across the colony as life support systems failed. People were running everywhere, trying to reach safety that did not exist. Young Min began typing frantically. His message was simple and desperate. Horizon's Edge under attack by Vral Empire. 800 civilians. They gave us 2 days. We had no chance to evacuate. They're killing us all. Remember what happened here. Make them pay. He hit the transmission button just as a plasma bolt struck the communications tower. The blast threw him across the room. Daeho rushed to his side, but he could see immediately that the young officer was dying. Blood poured from wounds in his chest and stomach. "Did it send?" Young Min gasped. "Did the message get through?" Daeho looked at the console. The light was green. "Yes, Earth will know. They'll know what happened here." Young Min smiled weakly. "Good. That's good." His eyes closed and he stopped breathing. Daeho had no time to grieve. He grabbed a rifle from the weapons locker and ran for the shelters. Outside, the sky was full of Vral dropships descending through the smoke and fire. Their massive landing craft touched down around the colony's perimeter, and armored Vral soldiers poured out. The Vral were tall and insectoid, with 4 arms and thick exoskeletons that could stop most small arms fire. They moved with terrifying speed and efficiency, killing every human they found. The 42 Terran soldiers fought back desperately, but they were overwhelmed in minutes. In the medical center, Hana heard the sounds of combat getting closer. She was hiding with 15 children in a storage room, trying to keep them quiet and calm. Some of them were crying softly. Others just stared at nothing, too shocked to make a sound. "It's going to be okay," Hana whispered, even though she knew it was a lie. "Help is coming." The door exploded inward. 3 Vral soldiers entered, their weapons sweeping the room. They saw the children and raised their guns. Hana stepped in front of them, spreading her arms wide. "No! They're just children, please!" The lead Vral tilted its head, considering. Then it fired. The plasma bolt burned through Hana's chest, killing her instantly. She fell to the floor, her body still shielding the children behind her even in death. The Vral soldiers killed the children next. It took less than 30 seconds. This scene repeated itself across the colony. Families huddled in shelters were found and executed. Engineers trying to surrender were shot down. The elderly, the young, the sick, the Vral made no distinction. Their orders were clear. Eliminate all humans. In the deepest maintenance tunnels beneath the colony, Jiwoo and 23 others had hidden themselves when the attack began. They could hear the sounds of battle above, muffled by meters of rock and metal. They heard the explosions. They heard the screaming, and eventually, they heard nothing but silence. Jiwoo held his breath, listening to the quiet. Around him, the other survivors clutched each other in the darkness. They had no weapons, no communications, no way of knowing what was happening above. All they could do was wait and hope that somehow they had been overlooked. On the surface, Kethrix surveyed the destroyed colony with satisfaction. His soldiers had performed efficiently. The humans had been eliminated with minimal Vral casualties. A few soldiers reported that some humans might have escaped into the underground tunnels. But Kethrix did not care about a handful of survivors. He had a simpler solution. "Target the colony's fusion reactor," he ordered. "Overload it and set it for catastrophic failure. I want this entire settlement turned to glass. No evidence, no survivors, no witnesses." His tactical officer hesitated. "Warlord, if we destroy the reactor, the explosion will contaminate the entire region. It will make this planet unusable for colonization." "We don't need this miserable rock," Kethrix replied. "We need to send a message to any other humans who think they can occupy Vral space. When Earth discovers what happened here, they'll find nothing but ruins and radiation. They'll know we were here, but they won't be able to prove anything." The Vral engineers went to work on the reactor. Within an hour, they had bypassed all the safety systems and set the fusion core into a deliberate cascade failure. the reactor would explode in approximately 12 hours, long after the Vral fleet had left the system. As the Vral ships lifted off from Horizon's edge, they left behind a silent and burning colony. Bodies lay everywhere, some inside buildings and others scattered across the open ground. The cheerful settlement that had greeted the morning sun just 2 days ago was now a graveyard. In his flagship, Kethrix composed his report to the Vral Emperor. He described the human colony as an armed military installation that had fired on Vral ships without provocation. He claimed that the humans had been preparing for war and that his forces had acted in self-defense. He made no mention of the civilians, the children, or the desperate plea for more time. The Vral fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the threshold system behind. 12 hours later, exactly as planned, the fusion reactor exploded. The blast was visible from orbit, a miniature sun that consumed what remained of Horizon's edge. The colony, and almost everyone in it, ceased to exist. Deep underground, Jiwoo and the 23 others felt the shockwave. The tunnels shook violently, and parts of the ceiling collapsed. 3 people were crushed instantly. The others screamed and held on to each other as their world ended above them. When the shaking finally stopped, Jiwoo checked on the survivors. 21 now. They had some emergency supplies, enough water for maybe a week, and no way to contact anyone. Their colony was gone. Their families and friends were dead, and they were trapped in the dark, thousands of light years from Earth with no hope of rescue. All they could do was wait, conserve their resources, and pray that somehow Young Min's message had gotten through. That Earth would learn what had happened here. That someone would come looking for them. In the cold silence of the tunnels, that prayer was all they had left. Children here. This is our home. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I will not order you to fight. Anyone who wishes to attempt evacuation may do so. But I will not surrender this colony. I will not let bullies take what we've built. Earth may be far away, but we are still human. We do not bow to tyrants. Across the colony, people listened to his words. Some cried, some prayed. But when Daeho asked for volunteers to help with the defense, almost every able-bodied adult stepped forward. The deadline expired. The Vral ships began to move closer, and on Horizon's edge, 847 humans prepared to fight for their home, knowing that Earth would not hear about this for another 6 months. In the cold mathematics of space warfare, the outcome was already decided. But the humans did not know that yet. All they knew was that they would not go quietly into the dark. The message arrived at Terran Command headquarters on a cold morning in Geneva. Lieutenant Park was working the night shift at the communications center when his console suddenly lit up with priority alerts. A quantum burst transmission, the kind only sent in absolute emergencies, had just been received from the frontier. Park read the message once, then again, his hands beginning to shake. He immediately forwarded it to every senior officer on duty and activated the emergency alert system. Within minutes, the entire command center was filled with people rushing to their stations. Admiral Hyunwoo arrived 30 minutes later, still buttoning his uniform jacket. He was a tall man in his 60s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. He had hoped to retire soon, to spend his last years in peace. That hope died the moment he read Young Min's message. When was this sent? He demanded. 6 weeks ago, sir, Park replied. It's a quantum burst, so it traveled much faster than normal communications. But there's still delay. By now, whatever happened at Horizon's edge is already over. Hyunwoo felt cold rage building in his chest. 6 weeks. The attack had happened 6 weeks ago, and they were only learning about it now. He pulled up everything they had on Horizon's edge. Population records, defense capabilities, last supply run. 847 people, mostly civilians, families. Get me President Yoon-ji, he ordered, And send patrol ships to the threshold system immediately. I want to know what happened. The president arrived within the hour. Yunji was a stern woman in her 50s who had led Earth through both prosperity and crisis. She read the message in silence, her face showing no emotion, but those who knew her could see the anger in her eyes. "Do we have any other information about these Vral?" she asked. General Bora, head of strategic response, pulled up a holographic display. "Limited information, Madam President. We've had sporadic reports from other frontier colonies about an aggressive species in that sector. The Vral Empire, they call themselves. But we've never had direct contact with them before. And now, our first contact is them murdering our citizens," Yunji said quietly. "What are our options?" Ambassador Kyung-soo, a former diplomat who now advised on alien relations, spoke up. "We should attempt diplomatic contact first, open formal channels, demand an explanation, see if this was some kind of misunderstanding or rogue action." "Misunderstanding?" Hyunwoo's voice was sharp. "They gave civilians 48 hours to evacuate from a location thousands of light years from the nearest transport hub. They knew it was impossible. This was not a misunderstanding, this was deliberate." "We still need to follow proper protocols," Kyung-soo insisted. "If we respond with immediate military force, we could start a war that costs millions of lives." The debate continued for hours. Some argued for caution and diplomacy, others demanded immediate military action. Meanwhile, the patrol ships sent to investigate were racing toward the threshold system at maximum speed. 3 weeks later, they arrived. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The colony was gone, completely destroyed. Radiation levels indicated a fusion reactor detonation, but the pattern was wrong. This was not an accident. Someone had deliberately overloaded the reactor. The patrol ships detected no life signs anywhere on the surface, but then a faint signal. Deep underground, in what remained of the maintenance tunnels. The rescue team dug frantically through collapsed passages and found them. 21 survivors, barely alive after weeks in the dark with dwindling supplies. Jiwoo was among them. When they brought him to the surface, he could barely walk. His hair had gone white from stress and malnutrition. But his eyes were clear and filled with purpose. He had a story to tell. The survivors were rushed back to Earth on the fastest ships available. During the journey, medical teams cared for them while intelligence officers gently interviewed them. Jiwoo told them everything: the Vral ultimatum, the one-sided battle, the systematic executions, and the final act of destroying the reactor to hide the evidence. When they arrived at Earth, Hyunwoo was waiting at the spaceport. He met Jiwoo personally, looking into the eyes of a man who had lost everything. "I'm sorry we couldn't protect you," Hyunwoo said simply. Jiwoo shook his head. "We're past apologies, Admiral. The question is, what happens next?" What happened next was the largest emergency session of the Terran Council in history. Every representative, every admiral, every general, they all gathered to hear Jiwoo's testimony. He spoke for 3 hours, describing in careful detail everything he had witnessed. When he finished, there was silence in the chamber. Then President Yunji stood. "The evidence is clear," she said. "The Vral Empire attacked a peaceful civilian colony without provocation. They murdered 826 of our people, including 143 children. They destroyed the colony to hide their crime. This was not a border dispute or a misunderstanding. This was a massacre." She paused, looking around the chamber. "We have 3 choices. 1. We do nothing and accept that our citizens can be murdered with impunity. 2. We respond with diplomacy and hope the Vral see reason. 3. We respond with force and ensure this never happens again." General Bora activated another display. "I've been researching the Vral Empire's history through our intelligence networks. They've done this before. At least 12 other species have reported similar incidents. The Vral claim territory, give an impossible ultimatum, then destroy anyone who resists. They've never faced consequences because most of their victims are small, weak species without the resources to fight back. They think we're the same, Hyanwu added. They've only seen our frontier colonies, small, isolated, lightly defended. They don't know what Earth is capable of when we're united and angry. Ambassador Kyung-soo made one last attempt. If we go to war, thousands could die, maybe millions. War should always be the last resort. 826 people are already dead, Yoonji replied coldly, including children who will never grow up, parents who will never see their families again, and heroes like Captain Dae-ho who died defending their home. The Vral made their choice when they pulled the trigger. Now we make ours. The vote was not even close. 412 representatives voted for military action. 23 voted for continued diplomacy. 0 voted to do nothing. President Yoon-ji addressed the entire planet that evening. Her speech was broadcast to every city, every station, every ship in human space. People of Earth, she began. 6 weeks ago, a colony called Horizon's Edge was attacked and destroyed. 826 of our people were murdered by an alien empire that believed we were too weak and too far away to respond. They gave our people 2 days to abandon their homes, knowing it was impossible. Then they killed everyone they could find and destroyed the evidence. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. They were right that we are far away. It takes 6 months for normal messages to reach the frontier. But they were wrong about everything else. They were wrong about our strength. They were wrong about our unity. And they were wrong to think we would forgive this crime. Her voice hardened. The Vral Empire has mistaken our patience for weakness. They have mistaken our distance for absence. They have killed our people and thought there would be no consequences. They will learn otherwise. As of this moment, humanity is at war. We will find those responsible. We will demand justice. And if justice is denied, we will take it ourselves. Across Earth and throughout human space, the response was immediate. Shipyards went into full production, reserves were called up, weapons that had been kept in storage since the last war were brought out and updated. Every human colony, station, and vessel received the same order: prepare for war. Admiral Hyanwu was given command of the largest fleet ever assembled by humanity. 400 warships, including 8 dreadnoughts carrying weapons so powerful they were banned by human convention for use against other humans. Those restrictions did not apply to the Vral. The fleet gathered at Mars, a sight that inspired both pride and fear in those who saw it. This was humanity's answer to the massacre. This was the sleeping giant, finally awake and very, very angry. Jiwoo stood on an observation deck, watching the ships assemble. A young officer approached him, one who had lost family at Horizon's Edge. "Do you think we'll win?" she asked. Jiwoo thought of Dae-ho, of Hana, of Young Min, of all the people who had died. He thought of the long weeks in the dark, wondering if anyone would ever know what happened to them. "Yes," he said simply. "We'll win, because we have to." The Imperial Palace on Vral Prime rose above the capital city like a monument to conquest. Its towers were built from the bones of defeated species, each one a reminder of the Empire's power. Emperor Vexthor sat on his throne, listening to Warlord Kethrix describe the victory at Horizon's Edge. "The humans were eliminated efficiently," Kethrix reported, his mandibles clicking with pride. "We lost only 2 ships to their primitive defenses. The colony is now a crater, and any evidence of our presence has been destroyed." Vexthor was pleased. The humans had been a minor problem, but now that problem was solved. "What of the other human colonies in this sector?" "There are 3 others within 50 light-years," Kethrix said. "All small, all poorly defended. If they do not evacuate when we order them to, we will remove them the same way." "Excellent. The expansion continues," You are to be commended, warlord. In the back of the throne room, Counselor Reshka listened to this exchange with growing unease. She was one of the few Vral who specialized in studying other species, and something about the humans troubled her. They were spread across many systems, far more numerous than most species the Vral had encountered. Yet their colonies were always small and lightly armed. Why would a numerous species leave its settlement so vulnerable? After the ceremony honoring Kethrix, Reshka requested a private audience with the Emperor. Vexthor granted it, though he seemed impatient. "Speak quickly, Counselor. I have many duties to attend to." "Your Majesty, I believe we should investigate the humans more thoroughly before taking further action," Reshka said carefully. "We know very little about them. Where is their homeworld? What is their true military strength? Why do they keep their colonies so poorly defended?" Vexthor waved a dismissive claw. "We know enough. They are weak and scattered. Their colonies fall easily to our forces. That is all we need to know. But, Your Majesty, we have only encountered their frontier settlements. We have never seen their core worlds or their main fleet. For all we know—" "Counselor," Vexthor interrupted, his voice sharp. "The Vral Empire has conquered 30 star systems. We have destroyed countless lesser species. These humans are no different. They will scatter and flee like all the others, or they will die. Either way, they are not a threat." Reshka bowed her head, knowing it was useless to argue further. But her concerns remained. That evening, she began quietly moving her family and personal assets to a remote colony far from Vral Prime. If she was wrong, she would look foolish. If she was right, they might survive what was coming. Weeks passed. Vral intelligence detected unusual activity in human space. Ships were moving, resources were being redirected, communications traffic had increased dramatically. The analysts presented their findings to Emperor Vexthor. "The humans appear to be mobilizing," the intelligence director reported. "Our sources indicate they are assembling a large fleet." "How large?" Vexthor asked. "Estimates vary. Perhaps 300 to 400 ships." The Emperor laughed, a harsh rattling sound. "They send 400 ships to face the Vral Empire? We have over 2,000 vessels. This is suicide." Kethrix, who had been promoted to Supreme Commander of the Home Fleet, agreed enthusiastically. "Let them come. We will crush them and teach humanity what it means to challenge the Vral." But some of the older military officers were less confident. Admiral Drenka, who had commanded Vral fleets for 40 years, studied the intelligence reports with a critical eye. "The humans have been in space for less than 3 centuries, he noted. Yet they have spread to dozens of systems and established colonies across a vast region of space. That suggests significant technological capability and industrial capacity. Or it suggests they breed like insects and throw bodies at every problem," Kethrix countered. "Numbers mean nothing without strength." "Perhaps," Drenka said. "But I would still recommend caution. We know very little about human military doctrine or their weapons technology. It would be wise to gather more intelligence before engaging their main fleet." Vexthor considered this, then shook his head. "No, the humans must be dealt with quickly and decisively. If we appear weak or hesitant, other species may question Vral dominance. Commander Kethrix, you will take the home fleet and destroy the human forces. Make an example of them." Kethrix clicked his mandibles in acknowledgement. "It will be done, Your Majesty. The humans will regret the day they challenged the Vral Empire." The Vral home fleet was the pride of the Empire, over 1,800 warships, ranging from small corvettes to massive dreadnoughts. They had never been defeated in open battle. The ships gathered in orbit around Vral Prime, a display of power meant to intimidate any who dared oppose them. Kethrix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror, and addressed his officers. The humans believe they can avenge their pathetic colony. They believe their numbers will save them. We will show them the truth, that the Vral are the dominant species in this galaxy, and all others exist only because we permit it." His officers responded with enthusiastic clicking and chittering. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. They were the best warriors the Vral Empire could produce, and they were certain of victory. Intelligence continued to monitor the human fleet's movements. The humans were not trying to hide their approach. They came openly, brazenly, as if daring the Vral to meet them in battle. "They're heading directly for the home system," the intelligence director reported. "They will arrive in approximately 1 week." This surprised even Vexthor. "They attack our homeworld directly? This is madness. What kind of strategy is this?" "Perhaps they hope to frighten us into negotiation," suggested one advisor. "A show of force to demonstrate they are willing to fight." Admiral Drenka had a different interpretation. "Or they are confident they can win." "Impossible," Kethrix declared. "No species has ever successfully attacked Viral Prime. Our defenses are impenetrable. Our fleet is invincible. These humans will die by the thousands, and we will display their wreckage in orbit as a warning to others." The Vral Empire prepared for war with absolute confidence. Cities held parades and celebrations. The media broadcast propaganda about the coming victory. Schools taught children about the glorious battle that would cement Vral dominance forever. Only a few voices urged caution, and they were ignored. Counselor Reshka completed her family's evacuation 3 days before the human fleet was scheduled to arrive. She sent one final message to a colleague. "The humans are either very foolish or very dangerous. I fear we are about to discover which." Emperor Vexthor addressed his empire from the Imperial Palace. "People of Vral Prime, citizens of the Empire, today we face a test. The humans dare to bring war to our home. They seek revenge for a colony that violated our territory. They believe their primitive weapons can challenge our might." He spread his claws wide, his voice resonating with power. "Let them come. Let them see the full strength of the Vral Empire. Let them learn what happens to those who defy us, and when their ships are broken and their warriors are dead, we will continue our expansion unopposed. The galaxy belongs to the Vral, and no lesser species will take it from us." Billions of Vral heard this speech and believed it. They had been the dominant power in their region of space for generations. They had crushed every enemy who opposed them. Why would these humans be any different? On the Bridge of the Conqueror, Kethrix made final preparations. His fleet was positioned perfectly to intercept the humans at the edge of the system. Defensive stations orbited Vral Prime with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Ground forces were on alert, though no one seriously believed the humans would reach the surface. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "The humans will arrive within the hour." Kethrix settled into his command chair. "Excellent. Today, the humans learn the price of attacking the Vral Empire. Today, we write another chapter in our glorious history." He had no doubt about the outcome. The Vral had superior numbers, superior training, and centuries of military tradition. The humans were bringing 400 ships against 1,800. The mathematics were simple and brutal. What Kethrix did not know, what none of the Vral knew, was that the humans had not fought a major war in over a century. They had spent that time developing new technologies, new weapons, new strategies. They had learned from history that wars were won not just with numbers, but with innovation and overwhelming force applied with precision. The Vral were about to discover what happens when you attack a species that has spent 100 years preparing for the possibility of alien contact and has the industrial might of dozens of worlds to back it up. The clock counted down. 1 hour, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, and then, at the edge of the Vral home system, Space itself seemed to tear open as 400 human warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The battle for Vral Prime was about to begin. Admiral Hyun Woo stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, watching the Vral home system materialize on his displays. 1,800 enemy ships waited for them, arranged in a defensive formation around the planet. It should have been intimidating. Instead, he felt only cold determination. "All ships, status report," he ordered calmly. Across the fleet, captains responded. 400 human warships, each one representing the cutting edge of Terran military technology. The smallest could destroy a city. The largest could crack a planet's crust. Every single one was ready for war. "Fleet is ready, Admiral," reported his tactical officer. "Enemy vessels are moving to intercept." "Good," Hyun-woo said. "Let them come to us. Target priority Alpha. Destroy their command ships first. Show them what happens when they murder our people." 800 Vral warships began advancing, confident in their numerical superiority. Kethrix watched from his flagship as the distance closed, already imagining his victory. "All weapons, prepare to fire on my command," he ordered. "We will overwhelm them with our first volley." But as the Vral fleet moved into range, something unexpected happened. The human ships did not wait to be attacked. They opened fire first, and their weapons were unlike anything the Vral had encountered before. Railguns accelerated metal projectiles to a fraction of light speed. They struck Vral's shields with such force that the shields simply collapsed, and the projectiles continued through armor plating as if it were paper. Plasma lances, far more advanced than Vral technology, burned through hull metal like torches through ice. And the human point defense systems, automated weapons controlled by advanced computers, created walls of defensive fire that destroyed incoming missiles by the hundreds. The first Vral ship to die exploded so suddenly that Kethrix thought it must have been some kind of accident. Then a second ship died. Then 5 more. Then 20. "What is happening?" Kethrix demanded. "Why are our shields not holding?" "Their weapons are far more powerful than we estimated," his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. "Our shields were designed for conventional plasma weapons, not these kinetic projectiles, and their targeting systems are too accurate. They're hitting our weak points with every shot." On the Retribution, Captain Soon-hee led her fighter squadrons into the chaos. She had lost her brother at Horizon's Edge, and today was about more than victory. It was about making the Vral understand what they had done. "All fighters, free engagement," she ordered. "Find the ships with command signatures and destroy them. No mercy." Her pilots responded with grim efficiency. Human fighters were faster and more maneuverable than Vral designs, with better sensors and weapons. They slipped through the Vral formation like sharks through a school of fish, targeting command ships, supply vessels, and any ship that tried to retreat. Within the first hour of battle, the Vral had lost 300 ships. The humans had lost 5. Kethrix could not believe what he was seeing. This was supposed to be an easy victory, a simple matter of overwhelming the humans with superior numbers. Instead, his fleet was being systematically destroyed. His ships fired thousands of shots, but the human shields absorbed most of them, and the few that got through did minimal damage. "Order the fleet to withdraw," he said, the words bitter in his mouth. "We need to regroup and reassess." But Admiral Hyun-woo had anticipated this. The human fleet was positioned to cut off any retreat route. As the Vral ships tried to pull back, they found themselves herded toward the planet, trapped between the human fleet and their own defensive stations. "No escape," Hyun-woo said quietly. "They gave Horizon's Edge no escape. Now they receive the same courtesy." Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun commanded the 2nd Battle Group, positioned to intercept any Vral reinforcements. His ships had yet to fire a shot, but he watched the main battle with satisfaction. The technological gap between human and Vral forces was even greater than intelligence had predicted. "Admiral, The Vral are attempting to use their orbital stations against us, reported his tactical officer. Let them, Dong-hyun replied. Those stations are stationary targets. They cannot maneuver or retreat. They'll be the easiest kills of the day. He was right. The massive defensive stations that orbited Vral Prime opened fire with everything they had, but human ships simply moved out of the way. The return fire was devastating. Human dreadnoughts targeted the stations with focused plasma strikes, and one by one, the stations exploded in brilliant flashes of light. On Vral Prime, citizens watched the battle unfold in the sky above them. What they had expected to be a glorious victory was turning into a nightmare. Their fleet was dying. Their defenders were dying. And the human ships kept coming, relentless and unstoppable. Emperor Vexthor watched from the Imperial Palace, his confidence crumbling. How is this possible? We outnumber them more than 4-1. Numbers mean nothing if our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses, Admiral Drenka said grimly. He had warned about this possibility, but no one had listened. We need to surrender before they destroy the entire fleet. Surrender? Vexthor's voice rose in outrage. The Vral Empire does not surrender. Then the Vral Empire will die, Drenka replied bluntly. Aboard the Conqueror, Kethrix made a desperate decision. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet, broadcasting on all frequencies. Human commanders, I am Warlord Kethrix of the Vral Empire. I request an immediate ceasefire. We are willing to negotiate terms of surrender. The response came quickly. Admiral Hyun-woo's voice was cold and hard. Warlord Kethrix, you are the one who ordered the attack on Horizon's Edge. You murdered 826 civilians, including children. You destroyed their colony to hide your crime. Kethrix felt ice forming in his blood. That was a legitimate military action. The humans were trespassing in Vral space. You gave them 48 hours to evacuate thousands of light years from safety. You knew it was impossible. You wanted them to die. I was following orders, Kethrix protested. The Emperor commanded me to remove the human presence. I did my duty. And now I do mine, Hyun-woo replied. You gave Horizon's Edge 48 hours. We are more generous. Your empire has 8 hours to surrender unconditionally. If Emperor Vexthor does not personally transmit his surrender by then, we will begin orbital bombardment of Vral Prime. The channel closed. Kethrix stared at his displays in horror. 8 hours. The humans were giving them 8 hours to surrender their entire empire, or they would attack the homeworld directly. Get me the Emperor, he ordered frantically. But Vexthor refused to surrender. His pride would not allow it. We still have over 1,000 ships. We still have ground forces. The humans are bluffing. Your Majesty, they have destroyed half our fleet in 2 hours, Drenka argued. They are not bluffing. They are giving us a chance to save lives. We must take it. Never! The Vral do not bow to lesser species. While the Emperor raged, the human fleet moved into orbital positions around Vral Prime. Hyun-woo broadcast a message to the planet's surface, one that would be remembered for centuries. People of Vral Prime, this is Admiral Hyun-woo of the Terran Fleet. Your leaders ordered the massacre of our people at Horizon's Edge. They murdered civilians without cause. They destroyed the colony to hide their crime. We have come to deliver justice. He paused, letting his words sink in. You have 8 hours to surrender. Transmit your acceptance on all frequencies. Order your military to stand down. If your emperor refuses, we will be forced to respond with overwhelming force. We do not wish to harm civilians, but we will not allow the guilty to escape punishment. On Vral Prime, panic spread. Some cities began broadcasting surrender messages immediately. Others prepared for the worst. Parents gathered their children, not knowing if they would live to see another day. In her distant colony, Counselor Reshka watched the broadcasts and felt sadness mixed with resignation. She had tried to warn them. She had tried to make them understand that the humans were different, but pride and overconfidence had doomed her people. The 8 hours passed slowly. Some Vral colonies across their empire began surrendering, begging the humans for mercy. But Vral Prime remained silent. Emperor Vexthor refused to give the order, convinced that the humans would not dare attack a planet full of civilians. He was wrong. At exactly 8 hours, Admiral Hyunwoo gave the order. All ships commence bombardment. Target military installations, government buildings, and industrial centers. Minimize civilian casualties where possible, but do not hesitate. This is the price they pay for Horizon's Edge. The bombardment began. Human warships rained destruction on Vral Prime from orbit. Military bases exploded. Government complexes collapsed. The Imperial Palace, that monument to conquest built from the bones of defeated species, was struck by 3 simultaneous plasma strikes and vaporized. Emperor Vexthor died instantly, along with most of his court. He never got to see the full consequences of his decisions. Jiwoo stood on the observation deck of the Retribution, watching Vral Prime burn. He felt no joy, no satisfaction, only a terrible, necessary sense of completion. The people who had destroyed his home, who had killed his friends, who had murdered children, they were paying the price. "Is this what justice looks like?" asked a young officer standing next to him. Jiwoo thought about Daeho, about Hana, about Young Min and all the others. "No," he said quietly. "Justice would be bringing them back. This is just making sure it never happens again." The battle continued, the bombardment continued, and across the galaxy, every species that had ever considered challenging humanity watched and learned a single terrifying lesson. Do not attack human civilians, because Earth's response will be absolute.